When I first started working on Lincoln, I gave talks on the second inaugural with its remarkable generosity and profundity. I talked about Lincoln's magnanimity, his being, as his friend Leonard Swett said, a very poor hater. I noted that in spite of his role in a world of ambition, conflict, and power, Lincoln did not hold grudges. I told the whole story of how after Edwin Stanton had humiliated him in a law case in the old days, and in his presidential days had called him an imbecile and a guerrilla, Lincoln overlooked all that and appointed Stanton, who became his great Secretary of War. I went through the collected works and checked off all the Union soldiers sentenced to be shot to death with musketry, as the phrase had it in the courts-martial, whose life Lincoln saved with pardons. I noted Lincoln's eloquent letters of condolence, like the famous one to Mrs. Bixby that I understand is on display at the World Trade Center. I talked about the remarkable absence of hatred or vindictiveness in this war leader. In his career, the word amnesty was not a word of reproach. After one talk of this sort, I gave many of these here, there are several of these here at the Miller Center, and after one of them, a Miller Center regular, a former government official, came up to me and said, "You know, you always present the benign Lincoln." That gave me pause. Another experience may have had some of the same effect. On the turbulent day when a memorial to Abraham Lincoln was dedicated in the capital of the Confederacy, a large story in itself that day was, 3 of us were invited to give talks in the morning before the dedication at the Virginia Historical Association. Mine was once again about the second inaugural and the magnanimous Lincoln. A conservative writer for the Weekly Standard, who was covering the furor over the monument, heard us talk in the morning. When he wrote it up, he said disdainfully that we liberals seemed to believe that if Lincoln had been born 125 years later, he could have been Bill Moyers. That evening, when Richmond's leading Lincoln-hating neo-Confederate asked this conservative writer what we had all said in the morning about Lincoln, the conservative writer answered, "They said Lincoln was a wimp." The neo-Confederate sneering response was, "Jesus, even I don't think he was a wimp." Well, I don't think he was a wimp either. I say he was so far from being a wimp that he did not have to do macho things in order to avoid being called one. But I do admit that my presentations of Lincoln, with his magnanimity as the central trait, although true and important, as far as they went, told only part of the Lincoln story. The prior and central fact about President Lincoln is that he did his duty as a statesman. And that certainly required the unbenign, unwimpish assertion of purpose, use of coercive force, together with a long list of bold irregularities. I had invented for the earlier book the category in the subtitle, an ethical biography. The new book is an extension of that ethical biography into the unique moral situation of a President of the United States.